uh, Virgo. I want to start with the apology because it is real and it deserves to be the first thing. Not a dramatic apology, not the kind that makes a performance of its own sincerity, a quiet one. The kind offered by someone who has been doing this work long enough to know that sometimes the cards show something that was present in an earlier reading, something that should have been named more clearly or followed more carefully and was not. There's been something in your field for a while now that I kept reading as background, as context rather than content, as the frame around a picture rather than the picture itself. And sitting with your energy today, looking at what has assembled itself in front of me, I understand that I had the emphasis wrong. What I was treating as background is actually the foreground. And what I kept directing your attention toward as the primary story was, if not wrong exactly, incomplete in a way that matters. So I am sorry for that, genuinely. Now let me tell you what I actually see. But first, a real moment with this community. Something has been building in the comments lately that I want to name directly. People have been returning to previous readings and leaving updates, telling me what happened, what arrived, what did not, what surprised them, what confirmed something they had felt before the reading named it. I read every one of those. They are the most important feedback this work receives because they come from real life rather than from the moment of watching, which is always somewhat heightened. Thank you for that, for closing the loop, for trusting this space with the after as well as the before. And to anyone arriving here for the first time, welcome. You have found something that takes itself seriously enough to occasionally say it got something wrong. That is, I think, the minimum standard for any work worth trusting. Now, let us look at what is actually here, because it is considerable. High profile, I want to sit with those two words before I move past them, because they are doing something specific in the energy of this reading, and I do not want to flatten them into a generic description of someone impressive or successful or socially visible. High profile, in the way I am reading it here, is not primarily about fame, not about public recognition in the conventional sense of someone whose name is widely known. It is about a specific quality of presence, of weight, of the particular way certain people occupy a room, a conversation, a situation, not through volume or performance, but through a kind of gravity that others orient around without always understanding why. You have met people like this. Not many. They are not common. The specific quality I am reading is competence at a level that has become its own kind of authority. Someone who has navigated genuinely complex terrain, professional, personal, possibly geopolitical in some cases, and who carries the specific quiet confidence of a person who has been tested at a high level and knows what they are made of. That knowledge, that settled self-knowledge that comes only from genuine experience of consequence, produces a presence that is difficult to manufacture and impossible to fake. This person does not fake it. And something about you, specifically about the version of you that exists right now in this particular moment of your development, is what has drawn their attention. Let me try to get more precise about the nature of this attention, because I think precision serves you better than atmosphere here. This is not casual interest. I want to say that clearly and early, because casual interest from someone of this quality of presence would itself be notable. And what I am reading is something with considerably more intention behind it than casual. there has been observation, sustained, genuine, increasingly deliberate observation of you, of how you handle things, of how you move through situations, of the specific quality of your judgment in moments that reveal judgment, of your integrity under conditions that test integrity. This person watches before they engage. It is part of how they operate, part of what has kept them in the position they occupy. The ability to assess accurately before committing, to read situations and people with a precision that has served them well across years of operating at a level where the cost of misreading is significant. And what the assessment of you has produced in them is something they perhaps did not expect when the observation began. Respect, not admiration in the surface sense, respect in the deeper sense of one capable person recognizing capability in another, of someone who has seen enough of the world to know what genuine quality looks like, finding it in you and responding to that finding with an attention that goes beyond what they had originally planned to offer. Something is pulling at the edge of this, and I want to follow it because it is specific enough to be worth pursuing. There is something about the way this person's attention shifted. A moment, a particular exchange or observation or witness behavior where something they had been reading as one thing revealed itself to be something more, something that required an update to how they were thinking about you. I cannot see the exact content of that moment from here. What I can see is its quality, the specific quality of a recalibration, of someone whose mental model of a situation has been revised upward by data they did not anticipate. You did something or were something in a moment they were watching that exceeded what they expected, not dramatically. You were not performing. That is precisely the point. You were simply being what you are in a moment that happened to be witnessed by someone with the perceptiveness to understand what they were seeing. And what they saw was someone operating at a level they had not yet credited you with. That moment is the beginning of what is now moving toward you. I want to speak honestly about something here because I think the honesty serves you more than a purely celebratory reading would. The arrival of someone with this quality of presence and this level of achieved competence in your life is not a simple thing. It is not uncomplicated good fortune that requires nothing of you except receptivity. It is also an invitation to a standard. Not a standard imposed from outside, not a performance required to maintain their interest, but the specific invitation that arrives when someone genuinely capable decides to take you seriously, which is the invitation to take yourself equally seriously, to show up at the level they have already assessed you as capable of consistently, not only in the moments that happen to be witnessed. I am reading something in your field around this that I want to name carefully. There is a gap, a specific gap between how you present in the moments when something feels at stake and how you present in the ordinary intervals between those moments, between the version of you that rises to occasions and the version that moves through daily life when nothing feels particularly consequential. This person's entry into your life has the potential to close that gap, not by forcing you into constant performance, by raising the baseline of how seriously you take your own ordinary moments. Because someone who assesses at this level does not only observe the peak moments, they observe the texture of the whole. Let me talk about the practical shape of what is approaching, because I think the reading needs to move from the atmospheric to the concrete at this point. There is going to be an approach, a deliberate one, something that does not have the tentative, hoping to be noticed quality of someone uncertain about whether they have standing to reach toward you. This person has decided something. The observation period has concluded. The assessment has reached its finding, and what comes next has the quality of intention rather than impulse. Whether this approach is professional or personal in its primary register, I am reading elements of both simultaneously, which is itself interesting. People who operate at this level tend not to compartmentalize the way others do. Their professional and personal selves are more integrated because the demands of the level they operate at require a consistency of character that does not have room for significant divergence between the two. So what they bring when they approach you is not a professional version or a personal version. It is simply them, which is both simpler and more demanding than the compartmentalized version would be. Something came through just now that I want to include because it arrived with a clarity that I think belongs in this reading. This person has been in the company of accomplished, impressive, capable people for long enough that those qualities alone stopped producing a particular response in them some time ago. They are accustomed to competence, surrounded by achievement. The surface markers of success do not move them the way they move people for whom such markers are still novel. What moves them now is something more specific and considerably rarer. Authenticity at a high level of function. The specific, difficult combination of genuine capability and genuine humanness of someone who operates with real excellence without having sacrificed their realness to achieve it, without having become the polished, managed, impression-optimized version of a person that extended operation at high levels tends to produce. You have not become that version. Whatever you have been through, whatever pressures and demands and difficult seasons have been part of your story, you have retained something that people who have been in high functioning environments for a long time learn to recognize immediately because they have watched it disappear in so many others. You are still actually yourself, and that, specifically that, is what this person cannot stop thinking about. Does this feel like something you have been sensing without being able to fully name it? A quality of attention from someone that felt different from ordinary interest, more considered, more deliberate, carrying a weight that casual connection does not carry? Tell me in the comments if something specific came to mind as you listen to this. The details of what you have noticed matter, and I want to hear them. Let me address the apology one more time before we close, because I want to make sure it landed completely rather than functioning as a narrative device. What I was missing in earlier readings, and what this one is correcting, is the significance of the external dimension of your story right now. I kept returning you to the internal, to growth and self-knowledge and the quiet work of becoming. All of that is real and remains relevant. But the internal work has been producing something visible, something that is now registering in the world outside you in ways that earlier readings did not fully honor. You have not just been growing privately, you have been becoming someone whose particular quality of personhood is now legible to people with the perceptiveness to read it. And the person approaching is among the most perceptive you are likely to encounter, which means what they are seeing when they look at you is not a projection, not wishful thinking, not the ordinary, slightly distorted lens of attraction. It is an accurate reading of someone genuinely worth the quality of attention being directed toward them. That is not a small thing to receive, and you deserve to receive it fully, without minimizing it, without finding the reason it is probably not quite what it appears to be, without the particular Virgo habit of locating the flaw in the picture before allowing yourself to inhabit it. The picture is accurate. The attention is earned. The person approaching has assessed correctly. Let that be true without immediately beginning the process of making it smaller. It is not smaller. It is exactly the size it appears to be. And you are exactly the person who warranted it. Take care of yourself today, Virgo. And if you recognize who this reading is about, if a specific face or presence came to mind in the early moments of this and stayed with you all the way through, I want you to sit with what that recognition means, because your perception of who this is, the fact that you already know, is its own confirmation that the attention between you has been mutual for longer than either of you has fully acknowledged. Until next time, the apology stands, and so does everything that follows it.